And here we are, my great pleasure to have this performance that is the first one of the performance from the Fabriano brand. The Fabriano brand, as you know, this year has finally become our main supporter, exclusive supporter for Fabriano InAcquarello. We share the same name, so it was something that we expected to do since very long, both us and both the Fabriano. And Pierre Guidetti, all of you know, because he did the webinar last year about the Artistico. Pierre, come in. And we have Pierre, that he is a member of the Fabriano staff team, and he will present himself, but also we have three great artists that is my honor to present you, because I love the three of them really from the bottom of my heart. Lana Privitera, Mona Omrani, and Didier George. Didier is from France, Mona is from Iran, and now she lives in Spain also, so she represents two of the countries, and Lena also, she represents two countries because she's Spanish, but she lives since many years in the United States. Thank you for being with us. It's really a joy, absolute joy. Now I leave the stage to the great Pierre from Fabriano, and please, Pierre, go on. I'm here to support you. When you need me, you just call.
So, merci, grazie. And I start by bonjour. Or today it's buongiorno or buonasera, I guess. So, first of all, I would like to thank Anna. You know, most of you, you tell me what's the good distance. Is that okay? Like this? So, Anna is incredible. I don't know if you realize what she built, you know, herself at the beginning. It's incredible. And today, we celebrate the greatest watercolor festival in the world. And Anna, fantastic. Where should I start? First of all, I'll start with just a little story. You know, this is totally improvisation. Today we're going to experiment, you know, relation art. I want you to get involved, you know, we're going to paint. But I would like interaction. You know, at the end, I would like for you to maybe come closer or to ask questions. But I just want for you to reflect on one thing. You know, in 1264, I show you the date. In the Middle Age, the little town of Fabriano was, in the middle of the Middle Age, the equivalent of the Silicon Valley today. You know, I live near the Silicon Valley. So imagine that in 1264, in the little town of Fabriano, in the center of Italy, they invented or brought or developed the modern paper, the paper the way you know it today. For you, paper, it's so normal, you know, but imagine before paper, how the life was. So in 1264, it was one of the biggest revolutions, you know, in communication that led to whether it was for religion, for love, for business, for art, writing. It changed the world. And all that started in 1264 in the middle of Fabriano. The first place where paper, the way you know it. Now you take it for granted, but it was an amazing revolution. So just keep that in mind. So today I'm going to try to walk you through what is paper and why paper is so important. And you know, I've been working with paper for 40 years in my career, and to this day I still learn every day about how paper reacts. Paper is like a person, has its own personality. There is no better paper, worse paper. It's a bond with you that you build with your paper. Each paper has a characteristic, has its personality, and you have to learn how to work with it, or sometimes be surprised with it. And today I'm going to try to describe the different kind of paper. But while I talk, we are so lucky to have three of the greatest artists, and there are many here also that share that level of expertise and professionalism. So I'm going to start by asking them what are they going to do today. They're going to start painting, and then we'll check in during the hour. So first, Lana, bonjour, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, there we go. Hola, hello, okay, and buongiorno, buonasera. I'm from Spain, but I live in the United States. And what I want to paint tonight is I want to show you how I do cloth. I don't know if you have seen my paintings. I paint in a realistic style. So it will be impossible for me to paint a complicated painting in 1 hour. So I'm just going to show how I do cloth and maybe how I do the many layers for my dark backgrounds. At least you get to see a little bit of my process, okay? So you'll see many layers on the top and you'll see many layers in the bottom, okay? And that's it.
Hello everyone, hola. I'm Mona Omrani from Spain, originally from Iran. Viva! I'm going to do a portrait, dark skin, and you will see the process. And I'm using my selection of the color and the brushes EOEO and some other brushes. All this material is here. If you like, you can have it, okay? So that's all.
Bonsoir. Moi, je vis en France et je vais essayer de vous réaliser en fait une scène de vie, en fait une scène de danse, voilà, avec des danseuses. Je vais travailler donc sur du Fabriano au torchon, avec des pinceaux Escoda et de l'aquarelle sennelier. Voilà.
Alors, George is going to paint some ballerina or dancers, and he's saying that he's working on torchon, which is rough paper. That's why they each work on different paper, and he's using rough, and he's from Artistico, from Fabriano. Rough, is it traditional white? I think traditional white. No, extra white, okay. With the light, it's hard to say. And he's using the Sennelier watercolor. Sennelier is dear to me because that's how I started my business as 20 years old. I started introducing Sennelier in the United States. I dropped out of school, and Sennelier is like my family. It's a company that started making the paint for the Impressionists in France in the 1800s in Paris, and still make the paint like the traditional with honey and very bold color that was designed for like Cézanne or Monet and all that. So it's very dear to my heart. So thank you. So please, go on. Yes, thank you. So that's how I finished, but I say at the beginning, so I told you I was going to tell you about the different kind of paper. And I'm going to try to explain to you the different kind of category of just watercolor paper. Because I realize even artists that have worked with watercolor for a long time, they're still unsure about what's the paper, how it works, the difference between cold press, hot press, soft press, rough, between traditional white, extra white, cotton, 10% cotton, 25, 100%. So I'm going to try to clarify a few things for you. There is a confusion. Fabriano is one of the biggest name in paper in general, and many of you are referring to, oh, I use Fabriano paper. I like Fabriano paper. Oh, or there is something I don't like about Fabriano paper. But there's not such a thing as one Fabriano paper. Just in watercolor, Fabriano have dozens of different kinds of watercolor paper. More, maybe 50 different kinds if you count all the weight, the color, the surfaces, the cotton content. So one way to look at it is, I want to say something. When I said it started in 1264, why do we say that? Because it was in 1264, after I'm making a shortcut because I give lecture about paper history. It takes 2 hours, so don't worry. I'll give you a 5 minutes, 10 minutes brief. So it came, to make it short, in Europe, the Crusaders, when they came to the Orient, they took the secret of paper that originally started in China, then through the Arabs, and then the European got the secret from probably was Syria, today maybe Lebanon. They brought it back, and one came back to Ancona, and from there, they found the best place to make paper. They arrived at Fabriano. It's the perfect place. The temperature, there was good water, and then they invented 3 things that changed, that were able to make paper viable. One is they invented what we call a hydraulic beater. At the time, to get the cotton or the linen, there was both, you took the rag. That's why in the old days we used to say 100% rag. So literally, you would pick up the rag from the family, from the people, the linens, the clothes, they would wash it, and then they would break to make the fiber. And for that, they invented hydraulic, to beat the fabric to make the fiber that you mix with water. And then they invented the sizing, surface sizing. You can imagine Italy is very known for the leather, for the tannery. So they realized that when you prepare the leather, you have this gelatin, some kind of a glue gelatin, and they had the idea to mix that or to put it on the paper, because prior to that, the paper that existed before would fall apart. It couldn't take water. So there was some water, but you couldn't use it. So they put it in boxes to have prayers or secret messages, but you could never touch it. So beater, sizing, it's now called gelatin size. And the third thing was watermark. Watermark was designed, watermark is what you see through, through the light. You see the sign, usually now it's a brand, but it could be other thing. In banknotes, you see through your banknotes, and you see that's the watermark. The watermark was designed for 2 reasons. Originally, to identify who made it, because it was not a company, it was many individuals that were making the paper around the river, and then later it got federated to make a company. But people needed to know where it came from, because it was important to know that it was authentic. And then it was for official document, whether it was the kingdom, whether it was the Pope, whether it was a big business, they wanted to make sure that the authenticity of the message came from the watermark. So with that, that was the starting, the foundation of what paper you know today. So that's just, I leave it to that for the history. Later we can go question and answer. And so now I'm going to bring back, so let's see what's going on here. So in a few minutes, we'll go and you can show to see the progress, but let me walk you through different things on paper. You know, I live in America, and we have a way to describe in business, in positioning, you know, good, better, and best, you know. So you could say there is a different way to look at it. There is the way the paper is made. So there is actually 3 ways you can make paper. One is the way it was made for 757 years, which is handmade. You know, you put the fiber in water, and then usually I demonstrate, but not today, and you put it in the water, you shake it in the mold, and then after you take 1 sheet at a time in between blankets, you press it, then you let it dry for a long time with heat, no heat in the air, and that's handmade. Then in the 19th century, there was the invention of the mold-made. Mold-made, it's actually the same system of a mold, but instead of doing sheet by sheet like that, you shake it, it's a round cylinder, and by capillary act, by suction, you reproduce the same way you make handmade paper, but more mechanical way, but it's very slow. And then I'll go back to the feature and benefit in a second. Then, later in the 19th century, there was the invention of the fourdonnier. Fourdonnier is a French word, but you call it also machine-made, which is the way most paper are made today. It goes very fast. It's a huge machine, you know. So 3 kinds: handmade, mold-made, machine-made. Well, Fabriano company is the only company in the world that today is able to make those 3 quality. So I'm going to walk you through it for a second, and then I can tell you what I think are the features and benefits of each. And that would be the first step for you to recognize, to be able to choose what you need for your own, what you should use for your own need. So, first, for example, this, it's called 1264. We just relaunched it last year, and this is machine-made. I start from the beginning, what we call the good. So even though it's within Fabriano, the lowest grade in the world of art, or in the world, it's already very good quality, you know? And that's 100% high alpha cellulose, which is, you know, sort of wood pulp, but treated in a way, developed in a way that it's archival still. It's lignin-free, acid-free, and sized and made with felt and all that. It's very decent paper. So, and there is, okay, then still machine-made. You can have the studio. Studio, it's made with the same machine, but there is 25% cotton. You know, so we call it, it's the better. Then, so I talk about this one. It turns out in America, we don't sell it right now, but we will soon get it back. This is 50%, no, I'm sorry, I get back. So this is it for the fourdonnier. Then you go to the mold-made. So mold-made, you have 2 quality, which is this one, 50% cotton, mold-made. Okay? Then you have the Artistico, which is mold-made, 100% cotton. And today, for good painters like you, this is what I recommend to be, that's, in my opinion, the go-to paper. It's not the only one like that, but in fact, if you narrow it down, there's only 2 companies that make paper of that quality. Today I talk about Fabriano. I usually don't mention the competition, but I think you all know who I'm referring to, and they are both of the same league with different characteristics. And this, at your level, I would recommend to use 100% cotton mold made. I'll tell you a little story. The irony is, I told you Fabriano invented the surface sizing, which was animal-based, gelatin-sized, but today, and it was about 20 years ago, 25 years ago at Fabriano, when I started working with Fabriano, we decided for archival reason and for environmental reason to stop using animal sizing, and we have for the last 20 years developed non-animal size. Just 2 years ago, that's why you see enhanced quality, we just refined the sizing to make it 100% vegetal. So no chemical and no animal, it's 100%. People would call it, in the US, we call it vegan. It's a vegan paper. So the irony is our greatest competitor, they're actually from France, I'll give you that much. They use today the old Fabriano technology of gelatin size. So again, I cannot tell you which one is best, but they react differently. So the characteristic of Artistico sizing is the latest development of fully vegan sizing. Why did you do that? Aside from the fact it's probably today, we realize it's better for the environment to reduce animal byproduct. It also has some interest for archivalness. With gelatin size, it could yellow in time. It's hard to have consistent sizing from batch to batch. You could have surprise. Animal can attract bugs. If you leave it in humidity, it can smell. And so we thought it was best. But it could be, for certain technique, you might like it. So you don't have to stick to one paper. Of course, we'd love for you to use only Fabriano, but it's okay to go from one to the other. And again, you have to listen to your paper, see how it reacts, what works for you. So I think we're going to take a pause, and let's see where you are. Lana, tell us, where are you in your process?
1 second, I need to erase this. I actually rely, sorry. My technique relies on putting a lot of paint, many layers, and then actually removing some of those layers. And I use different tools. I use a lot of scrubbers. But usually I use them as scrubbers. Scrubbers, so loud. Actually, some of them are not things that you can buy as scrubbers. They're just simply an oil brush that I cut off so it could fit in there. And I trim it with scissors. So it has kind of, it's rough. Later, I want you to actually come later and test them and see how rough they are. So I have different degrees of roughness. For example, this one is Cheap Joe's Fritz Scrubber is called. And it's even rougher than one. So let's say that I lost my whites. I can go at the very end, after everything is finished, I can lift more paint and go back to white. But I use different ones, right? I have also, for small lines, different ones. This one was a brush that had little tiny hairs sticking out. I trimmed them off, and now when you look at it sideways, it's very, very thin, but it's stiff enough that I can lift lines. So basically, you create your own tools. Sometimes they don't sell them on the street. So what I'm doing now is trying to create washes here for you to see how I use water and different colors. Yeah, for the camera here. Okay, and this will be my first layer. Usually, at home, I will do 3, 4, 5 layers, especially for the background. until I get it very, very dark. I put there like 3 little balls, like marbles, just to put something on top. So the idea this is going to be a tablecloth, okay? But, you know, so it's just a matter of layers. So I think that's all I want for now. And as you turn...
So Mona, tell us what you're doing and how you start your painting and what's your process, please?
Okay, I am doing wet on wet, and I am doing injections. I put some color and inject another inside. So this can help to the tone of the skin is more natural. And the hair is wet on wet too, but it's not finished yet.
Show your painting to the camera, please.
It's wet.
Oh, it's wet, so be careful. Okay.
Alors moi je suis en train de mettre les demi-teintes. Avant de faire monter mes contrastes, j'installe à peu près mes volumes. Une fois que j'ai tous mes volumes, je vais faire monter les contrastes. Voilà.
J'ai pas tout compris.
Voilà,
Répète.
Alors j'installe en fait les demi-teintes, donc les teintes faibles et les demi-teintes. Et après je vais faire monter mes volumes avec des teintes fortes.
Okay, so it starts with half tone, you know, and he position, and then next is gonna put the tone more powerful and accentuate, you know, the tone or the values if you want. Okay? Merci. All right. So I have a question for you, which is, so far, we're not going to do too many questions, but so far, with what I told you, is there any burning question? Was it pretty clear? Do you want me to, is there any part of what I said about the different paper or the history of paper that, you know, was not clear, that you want clarification, or was it okay? Wow. Okay, that's good. Okay. No, go ahead.
The paper in that yellow, the paper in the yellow sketchbook, you said was 50% cotton. What is the other 50%?
Good question. So you're referring to that? So I can specify another thing. There is, when you say a pad, a block, I want to specify. This is a block. You know, at least in English, a block, it defines glued on 4 sides. Just wanted to clarify that. You know, so it's in order that when you weight the paper, it stretches the paper and it prevents from buckling, okay, having waves. You know, as opposed to this would be a pad, and this glued is only one side. So to answer your question, the other 50% is also high alpha cellulose. So the other 50%, it is the same as the other, with just half of what's in there and half what's in there. So it's halfway. Half cotton, 50% cotton, 50% high alpha cellulose. Cellulose comes from wood, but it's treated to be archival. Does that answer your question? So you didn't ask the question, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Why is it better to have cotton? Why is it better to have handmade, mold-made, or machine-made? So why cotton versus wood? It's the length of the fiber. You see, you had like linen originally. There's not many paper made with linen. Originally was that, which is the longest fiber. Cotton is pretty long, and wood pulp is very short. So it's very important to the construction of your paper, that when you have longer fiber, it's stronger. So if you use a lot of water or if you carry, it makes the paper stronger, more resistant, more forgiving. You can scrub, you can scratch, you can put a lot of water, and the fibers, the longer the fibers, the stronger your paper is. So that's the advantage of having 100% cotton. Why is it better to have handmade versus mold-made versus machine-made? It's when you do handmade, and I'll tell you later, I have a surprise about handmade, but they don't know about it, so that's why. I'll talk to you about handmade a little later. Right now, let's focus on mold-made and machine-made. So basically, the fibers, you have, how can I explain clearly? Because like I said, it's a longer cover. You know, I'll start with machine-made. The big machine, you know, it goes very fast, and the fiber get aligned, and you have a grain direction. So if you take like a basic machine-made paper, like let's say you take a copy paper, and you try to tear it in one side versus on the other side. There's one side, it tears very fast. On the other side, because all the fibers are aligned in the same direction. It's called grain direction. So what happens when you paint and you put a lot of water, it's buckle more because it's, you know, it buckles always in the same direction. So it doesn't give you a consistency. If you do delicate washes or things, you know, the water will have a tendency to slide through the grain direction. So what happens when you do mold-made, and even better with handmade, you intertwine the fibers, you know? Either it's like this or it's like this. So what happens, when you put a lot of water, it's more stable. It's a little more flat, or if it buckles in a unified way. So again, if you want to, you hope to control the paper somehow, even though you cannot control it 100%, but you have better control, less buckling, and more even. So that's why the difference of the advantage, the benefit of using 100% rag. Trust me, it makes a big difference. You know, what I recommend is for you, at your level, if you're serious about watercolor, when you're ready to do a real painting, you should really use 100% rag, we say 100% cotton, mold-made. But you can still use the machine-made, but it's more like studies. You know, if you want to paint a lot, the more you paint, the better you get. It's like music. So you can do studies, quick sketches, like I call it watercolor sketches. So you can, because, you know, mold-made 100% rag is a little more expensive, and you don't want to stop painting because you can't afford the paper. So you practice with the machine-made, with the non-cotton, maybe 25% cotton, 50%, just to practice. But when you're ready to enter a competition or to show, to have a beautiful paper, I highly recommend 100% rag. So how are we doing there? Oh my God. The fastest, the most impressive is Mona. Look, Mona is already, you know, your baby is born already. So now, there are other things to take in consideration. There is the grain. Hot press, soft press, cold press, and rough. So the most common now, these days, particularly in the US, and I believe now even in Europe, is the cold press, or grain fin or grana fina. It means there is a texture, not too pronounced. This is the bestseller. It's kind of a medium grain. And why is the grain? The grain, the texture, the cold press, it's not necessarily only to show the texture. It's because, you know, when you have peak and valley, it helps the light to get inside and it brings more luminosity to your painting. If it's totally flat, you don't have the same luminosity, the same brilliance. You know, it enhances your color. You know, so let's start from cold press is the medium, you know, most common. Then there is rough or grana rosa or torchon. Torchon means rags. That used to be the most popular in France and maybe in Italy. Now cold press is more popular and it's very pronounced. You know, the peak and valley are deeper and it gets it more rough, you know, kind of like a canvas, you know, very rough canvas. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have hot press, satiné, satinata. That's very smooth. It's called hot press because at the end of the paper, first of all, the felt and the texture comes from the felt. I told you, like handmade paper, you have a wool felt that have a different texture. That's when the paper is pressed, is getting ready, it gives you the texture of your paper. So for hot press, first of all, the blanket is smooth, but also at the end, it goes through hot calendar. You know, it's like hot roller, and he presses the paper hot and gives that very, very, very smooth surface. Traditionally, the hot press has been very popular for illustration, design, because you don't have the texture. So if you want to be very precise, it's a little easier to do a straight line and to give some very fine, or people who like to draw before, it's a little better because when it's rough, you know, you get little things. But for the reason I told you, if it's very flat, the color is flat too. It doesn't get the same brilliance, luminosity of the paper. So now, there is something special only at Fabriano and only in Artistico. We have developed a few years ago. We started in the United States, and now it's available in the rest of the world, but it's still not yet known. So soft press, or in Italian dulce press, and it's halfway between cold press and hot press. So we're trying to get you the benefit of both. So if you work very precise, you know, I see Lauren McCracken, it would be a good example of almost hyper-realist, photorealism. I mean, it's amazing. If you have too rough of a paper, you know, it's difficult to control the precise, but he likes, I'm sorry, Lauren, if I say something stupid, you can come and kick me. Okay. But he doesn't like hot press because it lacks the depth, the luminosity. So for him, and now there's a few other who works on his style or other style, it's just the perfect combination to be smooth, but yet with a little texture that gives you that luminosity. So, any question on the texture? That's pretty straightforward. Get it? Question? So I'm either so boring or I'm very clear. I don't know. So at Artistico, we have two colors. We have traditional white and extra white. First of all, I want to specify, and here you have Giuseppe, who's, by the way, tomorrow he has a lecture where he'll give you in depth more details about the history, about technical. So I invite you, the little guy there is very precious. Make sure you see him tomorrow. And the traditional white, we call it tradition because it was the paper before, in the last century and before, it was the white paper, but the paper, we couldn't make it so white, so it was off-white. The irony today is the traditional white, we add a little bit of tint to reproduce the original white paper. So if you want to paint like the masters, I recommend you use traditional white. There is a lot of benefit of traditional white because it's not too aggressive and there is not too much contrast. It's smoother, it's more subdued. And that was also in America, we were pushing to do extra white because, you know, in America, we always want to be bigger, greater, whiter, and we thought we want to get a whiter paper to compete with the leader at the time. Not going to mention the name, but you can guess. So we came up with the idea of a whiter paper. So extra white and not bright white. I want to clarify because it's very, very important. In the industry, you see bright white paper, but bright white imply that you use brightener, optical brightener, artificial brightener, chemicals to make it whiter, or you use bleach or chemicals. But the problem, I know, again, it's a little ironic. If you artificially whiten the paper will turn yellow. You know, the newspaper, I don't know if you still read newspaper, but remember how you leave your newspaper outside or in the sun, after a couple of weeks, it gets yellow. So that's what would happen if you use bright chemical in your paper. So what we do at Fabriano, we make it extra white. We make it the whitest possible by sourcing the best cotton and then to clean it without chemical. So tomorrow, Giuseppe can get more into details, but it's steaming and they're with air, they get the fiber. It's amazing, you see in the factory. So extra white is the whitest paper you can get. Okay.
I think you gave us a great lecture about paper making, and it was really a lot of information, really a lot. We thank you a lot. I think we should focus a little bit more on the artist. Yeah. Can we do?
No, I'd say that because people ask me 10 times a day those questions, so I want you to know it. So let's go to the artist again. Okay, let's start with Lana. Where are you, Lana?
No, just kidding. It's just, I'm used to work with hair dryer. So I work in layers. I dry my first layer, take a look, continue with it. Also today, I'm having different palettes. At home, I have my own little containers for the large batches of paint. So for example, for the background here, I will use a container like a cendrier, a ashtray with the green, another ashtray with the pink. Then I will mix, later on, I will mix another color. For example, mix some dark blue. So after my first pink layer, I put my green layer, another pink layer, another green layer. And these are transparent colors. These are phthalo green, and they are the quinacridone rose. So they are very transparent. So at one point, if for whatever the reason it looks good, even though my intention was to make it dark, if it looks good, I leave it. Because they're transparent colors and they look like watercolors. So let's say this one, the intention is to go as dark as a very dark midnight blue. So I would use usually the Indent from blue. That's my favorite color. Daniel Smith are usually the paints I use, but I also am using today Sennelier. I'm using, Sennelier and Daniel Smith. And today I'm using the Fabriano paper, which I happened to experiment with recently. And this is at 640 grams, cold press, gram, no, it's 640 gram, 300 pound, yes. So it's interesting because actually, I love it. I just finished a painting in this paper, and it allows me to layer 3, 4, 5 different layers. Of course, I have to use nice and soft brushes, natural hair. And then once they're completely dry, I can, if I need to, I can remove paint. Let's say I make a mistake. This paper is very forgiving, and I can lift and remove and go almost to white. So to me, it has a lot of value. So I'm really enjoying this paper, okay? So I think that's all I want for now to tell. But, oh, I wanted to mention that, yeah, the brushes, I'm actually using some that I got, some nice brush, which is a Raphael brush, which I'm loving. I hope I get to keep it. Do I get to keep it? Because I love it. Ah, wonderful. I have also some Skoda brushes, which I happen to love too, big time. So I think that's about what I wanted to say right now, okay? More later. I'll pass the microphone.
Okay.
Can you,
I'm-
you see, is it too wet or can you show it in the camera?
Yes, of course. It's thank you. I'm doing the eye and some detail, maybe light and shadow, and I mistake a little bit, maybe nervous. So.
Hold your
Okay, so some area maybe I wash later. So this is the result, but not finished.
So what's the next step? What are you gonna?
The next step is the eye and some detail of the gold, maybe in this.
The accessories and
Accessories.
yeah, or accents.
Yes, accent and some light and shadow. I have to wash some
back to the
area
light and
and
shadow. All right. Merci. Gracias. Alors, Monsieur Georges, qu'est-ce que tu fais là? T'en es où?
Là, je suis en train de faire monter donc, les contrastes. Donc, et là, je travaille avec un...
So he's accentuating this contrast. You know, earlier it was half tone. Now he's getting more tones, big tones, strong tones.
Voilà, donc c'est la phase finale.
It's the final step.
Voilà, et puis et j'en profite pour essayer de redessiner un peu mes personnages pour qu'ils prennent vie réellement.
So, and then by doing that, he puts his people alive. Through the shadows, to the contrast, he makes his people alive, right? Okay. So I didn't realize, thank you, Anna, I didn't realize the time. We're having so much fun. So one last thing, because she brought it up, sorry, Anna, it's the last thing, and I stopped boring you about paper, is the weight. There is also confusion, because in Europe, we talk about grams. In the United States, the UK, we talk about pound. So there is many different weight available, but it comes down to really two fundamental ones. I'm going to stick to that because then I'll talk too long. So you have 300 grams, GSM, grams per square meter, which is also 140 pounds. I'm not going to tell you today how the conversion works because it will take too long. It's not very easy, but I recommend to use metric because it's more precise. So the typical is 300 grams, 140 pounds, and the other is 640 grams per square meter, which is called also 300 pounds. And this is very important. It's not only the weight. People think it's just about stability or just about having less buckling. It's true, when you use 300 pounds or 640 grams, it doesn't buckle. You can put water, the paper stays flat or have slight little waves. When it dries, it gets back flat. But in fact, there is more to it. Because the fact is thicker, the paper reacts differently with the brush strokes. The penetration, the percentage of the sizing is proportionally much smaller when it is 640. So then you have a bigger space for more fiber without sizing. So then the penetration, the absorption, the reaction is different. So be careful. Don't assume that because you like 300 grams, you like better the 640 because it reacts differently. Or sometimes you use 300 grams and, oh, I don't care, so I'm not going to pay for 640, but I invite you to try anyway because you might be surprised. So that's about weight. And now we're getting close to the end. You know, officially we stop at 8, but just so you know, we'll hang out here for a few more minutes, and I would invite you to come closer, you know, as we get. Like I said, it's interactive. We want to attempt, and I want Anna to come here. I have a question for you, Anna. Aha. You know, she has stage fright now. So Anna, can you tell us your philosophy on, I think it's the way you say it. Can you tell us about relation art concept?
We talked about it yesterday a little bit. Actually, the relational art that is based on relations was started in Europe, as long as I know, maybe in Paris, actually, at the beginning of the 60s, 1962 or 1963, when I was born, actually. And it was an art that was based between the relation of the public, of the audience, and what the artists were planning to do in their artistic performances or arts or artworks. When we started the InArte organization, that is a culture and art and culture organization, we started to think that we could have applied art, taking care of relations. And the relations we thought that art could have developed were not only the one between the audience and the artist, but there were also the one between artist and artist and his artwork and the audience with the artist. So any kind of relation that were possible to build to make art done not only of selfishness, not only on self-concentrated, own self-concentration, and the kind of art that could be also used to grow society, that could also be used to grow friendship among the artists, like we are doing. And so we just started to do. We didn't really think that much as I'm telling you, but we just started to do art to grow the relations between the friends that were doing art together. And any kind of relation that we were growing was good and was powerful and was a value, and was also a push to become always more and more artistic and more grown up, more technical and anything. So very quickly we found that by growing relations, we could grow as artists, as societies, as organization, and as event. And Fabriano InAcquarello was born on this kind of thinking. I would not call it vision or philosophy, because just an attitude, that's all. But later on, after maybe 5 or 6 or 10 years, now we work since nearly 20, we realized that by working with such an attitude, it was easier for us to develop friendship and to build up Fabriano InAcquarello. And we found out that the magic was that we enriched our own life of many people coming, or many relations coming, and the art was blessing us with something more that the normal people had.
Bravo. Thank you, Anna. So I add a little bit to that, and we're getting to the end. It's true. Traditionally, historically, art is it's generic, but particularly painters or drawing painters is very solitary. You know, people would spend their, most of the day alone in their studio or plein air alone. And, that's why there was society, watercolor society, organize that, so it becomes a group, it becomes a relation, and you get together, you do competition, show together, and that's why I started by to say that I'm very impressed with Anna's accomplishment, because she took it to the next level. And today, all of you, I don't know how many countries are represented tonight, but at the show it's about 80 countries, right? And wherever you go in the world today, you meet people, watercolorists from all over the world, thanks to Anna, thanks to Fabriano InAcquarello, thanks to all of you, for the country leaders, for all that you create a community. And whether you meet in Italy or any countries, and you did that, it's your family.
Yes, and you know what, Pierre? Doesn't matter if it was Anna or Didier or you or Fabriano InAcquarello or whoever. Doesn't matter if it was Fabriano InAcquarello or someone other groups. The important things, we are sure of what we say. We are sure what we think. The good thing is, the important thing is that art is spread. And that art is spread not only for artists. The artists have responsibility to do their own art and to develop their own professionality. But the artists have also the responsibility to spread art all over the world to any kind of people, because art is a human right. And also, what it is important, and maybe we didn't say it enough in the past years, but I promise myself that I will do more and more in future, that we talk about art and peace. And this is not a joke like it usually has become when people jokes about the artists being foolish people and being silly people. We should talk more and more about art and artists, and we are so deeply linked to peace, to a peaceful world, to a peace, what can I call, learning a new culture and having a vision of a real one only world, to be all united by one only language, that is the language of art, that unite us all, from the people who lived in the caves millions of years ago and the people that live nowadays in the technology era, and the people that lives in one side and in the other side of the world. And we don't want anymore to talk about barriers.
Yeah. So, just to clarify, I didn't say you invented it. I think you helped to bring it to the next level. I just want to clarify. And peace, but there's more. During COVID, I think we've proven it. And in fact, I've been very active, proactive. I do a live every Friday from Art Savoir-Faire, which to promote the fact that art is essential. 2 years ago, you saw all the essential and the art never come up. So I lobbied very hard in the US, and hopefully now transpire in the rest of the world. Art is good for you. Art is good for the world. Art is healing. Art is therapeutic. Art brings peace. Art gets us together. Art is good for the community. So whether you share your art, you paint with your friend, you buy art, you give your supplies to people in need, the love of art will make a better world. So that's usually the time I say, go paint!
Yes, thank you. Go
So
paint.
we officially
So,
done, but
paint all your life and teach people to paint a lot, because they will become better people. Okay, do you agree?
so we're going to be here. You are welcome to come to the stage and look closer. And I want to make sure you each have one of those. If you haven't gotten one, you can pick one and come and talk to the artist, touch the work. And the thing we didn't have time to, I'll just mention it for next time, is I was going to show you a sheet and we're going to try, but we don't have time, of esportazione, which is the only handmade paper left. But now, come and meet the artist, please.
Stacca, vai in mano. Subito, fidati.
Mettere le slide.
Se riesci sì, poi pausa.
Alle 9, no?
Sì, pausa fino a 10 minuti prima delle 9.
Fare la registrazione.
Ok, grazie.
Cioè, adesso basta la registrazione.
Qua basta, sì. Ele, vuoi il monopod? Senti, io ho soltanto 1 chilo, tu hai 2 chili, tieni. Io vado a mano.
Sienna, that's boring looking, right? You mix it with a little bit of the pink. Look at how much nicer color you get. And when you mix those with the cobalt blue, I like cobalt blue. Okay, now let me see. What did I use?